Okay, guys. So some of you are, caught off guard by me having a co-host today. I didn't tell you guys too much about it, but I would like to introduce Roman. He is a another TikToker. I don't like to say that; it kind of diminishes. I feel like TikToker is too small for a lot of these people who have been doing their thing long before TikTok and outside of TikTok, but he has a focus on mental health, trauma, and many other things. And I just want to take a moment and let him introduce himself and talk about who he is, talk about what the title of his recent book, and talk about what we're going to be discussing today. So, Roman, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Roman Zanoni. I am a trauma recovery specialist. So I specialize in helping people to heal from complex trauma, which usually includes narcissistic abuse, neglect, abandonment. Complex trauma is trauma that happened over a long period of time, usually in childhood, and it has lasting effects for our life later on, like emotional dysregulation and a loss of self, negative self perception, difficulty in interpersonal relationships. And so I help people to heal from complex trauma. And I am the author of the book Mind, MIND, which stands for Mentally Identify Negative Distortions. And that is for sale on Amazon.com.
Awesome. Awesome. So, we originally were going to talk about inherited trauma, and I definitely want to come back to that topic in the near future. However, in light of some of the recent events going on social media, and I have to admit, I don't really stay up to date on a lot of the celebrity news, but because it is a good segue into talking about interpersonal issues concerning marriage, we're going to discuss Jada and Will Smith and some of the comments that have been made recently, including some of the backlash, but most importantly, analyzing some of the mentality behind some of the mindsets and the comments and things like that, and really kind of dissect it and just talk about it. And then towards the end, we're going to open up for questions, and I'll throw some questions at you guys, and you guys can throw questions at us, and this will just be really casual. So with that being said, so we all have been watching from afar about this, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett marriage thing. Do we really know what's going on, from the entanglement to the slap heard around the world to now it has become, we have been separated since 2016. Will is not my soulmate. Tupac is my soulmate, and then um, the most recent. So, Roman, can you kind of give us like a little bit more into the recent events, and we'll just start from there?
Yeah, I did a video talking about this recently because in her interview, she says, yeah, I'm a straight talker. And it's like, but you're not sometimes. And she's like, yeah, that's true. I'm not a straight talker sometimes. And it's like, well, we've been separated, but of course, that doesn't make sense. So I was talking about equivocation. And what equivocation is a narcissistic technique to make people get thrown off the actual truth by playing both sides of the fence. So this is like Trump saying there's good people on both sides. And so narcissists will do this where they'll actually give you the impression like they're feeling one way or they're going one way.
Mm-hmm.
But then they'll also give you the impression that they're also on the other side or they're feeling the other way. And you're feeling a little confused because you don't know where they are or where you stand with them. And they want it that way because it destabilizes you and they can claim whichever is going to be in their best interest at that time. For instance, we're not together, we're not in a relationship. They'll put you in something like that. But you think you are in a relationship with them. You're like, well, we do everything together. We're like in a relationship. And they say, of course we are. Of course we are. And you're like, well, wait a second, but you said we're not. So we are. And they're like, of course, you're my everything. And then you go along and you say, well, where are you? And they say, well, I'm out with some other chick. And then you go, well, why would you do that? And they say, what? We're not in a relationship, right? So they change their position based on whatever's going to work for them. So,
Hmm.
and that's the same thing, kind of what we see happening here. So the equivocation is being able to play simultaneously anything, any side of the fence. So when you hear we've been married for 26 years, but for the last 7 years we haven't been together. But we have lived together, but we've been living separate lives. So even though we live together, what that
Yeah.
is narcissistic equivocation. So, by the way, the guy you're married to wasn't totally aware that you guys weren't married. You're just saying that now because now that he seems to have lost public favor, you can slipstream, which is a narcissistic technique of riding in the wake of someone else so that you're behind them so you don't get as much wind resistance. Someone
Yeah.
more powerful, more talented, above you in some way. Narcissists view things on a hierarchy, so they think I got to rise through the ranks. I got to get up in the status here, right? So they
Hmm.
ride on someone who seems to have more status than them, and then they look for the opportunity to get in front of you. Now, in a situation like Jada and Will had a stellar reputation and personality. She's been looking for years for how she could get up in front of him, and there's no way with him. And
Hmm.
finally he does something that makes him lose favor. This is her opportunity, as she sees it, to capitalize on that moment and put herself above him, at least in her delusional narcissistic mind. That's the idea. So the covert narcissist now starts devaluing that person and separating herself from that person. Oh, I wasn't with him. We haven't been together. When he did
Yeah.
that, I'm thinking, why? He hasn't called me his wife. Now, come on. We all know you knew that you were there as his wife, right? So this the equivocation. Now I don't know that I'm even his wife. I just thought he had a free ticket to the Oscars. I mean, what are you talking about? Of course you know exactly what role you play. And so that's what you see happening. Narcissistic equivocation and slipstreaming. It's a covert narcissism technique. And so what
Hmm.
happens, people don't see female narcissism a lot. So what happens is they don't understand how a man that is handsome, talented, capable, how a man like that can be abused. That doesn't make sense because we don't see men as victims. And don't worry, men don't see themselves as victims either. So they will be in an emotionally abusive relationship and not realize that they are being emotionally abused.
Hmm.
And so the way a man interprets emotional abuse from his wife is, I'm failing to make my wife happy. I'm failing. Again, it's emotional abuse. When you withhold affection, when you withhold love, when you withhold approval from your children or from your spouse,
Hmm.
that is emotional abuse. It's a form of emotional neglect. So a
Hmm.
man interprets that as I need to work harder, I need to try harder, I need to invest more, I need to make this work. It is up to me. And we as a
Hmm.
society push that too. Like, yeah, it's on you, buddy. If your wife's not happy, it's your fault. And so a man will invest harder. And that's what you've seen over the years is he's tried harder, and you got a man trying harder. You got a man trying harder and harder. And he finally said, about 7 years ago, when they apparently, in her words, separated, he said, I retire from trying to make you happy. He hit the wall. It's like
Hmm.
I realize I cannot make this person happy. It's he didn't realize what he's dealing with is a narcissist who will never show herself to be pleased because that's her point of leverage over you. She's weaponizing your desire to be great, to be successful. And
Hmm.
so finally, that culminates in the self destruction when he burns himself out and tries desperate attempts to win her favor and to demonstrate some sort of toughness, some sort of masculinity so that she will respect him. And in the end, of course, that doesn't bear well for him.
The point that you made at the end, about so that she will respect him, I think that's a big aspect that a lot of people need to look at, because if you look back at some of the comments that Will Smith made about how he grew up, the dynamic between himself and his father, and based on the relationship he had with his father and how he felt, um, like he felt like he fell short as a son protecting his mother from his father. He felt emasculated by that situation, which he shouldn't have been, but it gave him a complex that he wasn't able to remedy throughout his life. And so throughout his life, he has carried with him this idea that, deep down inside, I'm not man enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not brave, strong, etc., etc. And I feel that, when we saw that slap, I think that was more of a reactionary thing. And I think that in his mind, he was standing up to his father, and he was standing up to every type of bully that he felt, got away with emasculating him. Even Jada, maybe. I think that at that moment, Chris Rock became everyone that made him feel emasculated from his father, probably many other people in his life. And that in that moment, we saw that reaction. I think a lot of people looked at him and they said, oh, Will Smith is a bully. And I think that in his mind, he was being bullied, right? Um, and now, of course, that's irrational, but it just speaks to wherever he was at that moment in time. And we just continue to see the unfolding of this. But it makes me wonder if Will Smith has been going through this, and he has been vocal about it, but if he's been going through this, his, for most of his adult life, and even through his childhood, it makes me wonder when, if ever, or how long he has been seriously trying to seek help for it. That is dragged out for so long. It makes me wonder if he's really prioritizing his mental health, if he's still carrying this weight. I think a lot of men do that. I think because, the numbers suggest that women are the ones who are into self-help more. They go to more of those self-help conferences. They read more self-help books. They do all of these things, but men are kind of like just dealing with things. Um, so what are your thoughts
And
on that?
yeah, no, you're right. And part of that is society backed as well. So there's also more support for the women who are in these abusive relationships. Now, remember, a strong-willed, egotistical man doesn't realize that he's being emotionally abused because where do you learn about that? What even is that emotional abuse? So
Hmm.
men don't realize what's happening. But when a man is deprived of that emotional affection, of that reassurance, of that validation from his spouse where he's supposed to receive it,
Hmm.
that sets the stage for him to act out that trauma, as you said. So all of that plays a part. Yeah, the father and the beating of his mom and all that stuff and the protecting. He's acting thinking he's protecting, but also what sets the stage for him to act outside of his character, because normally he's reserved and he wouldn't do that,
Hmm.
is the deprivation that you're under. It's very similar to how reactive abuse works, where
Hmm.
you look like the bully, but you're actually trying to just do something, as crazy as it is, to regain some sense of power or control. And
Yeah.
that's what you see happen with men who are emotionally abused. And so your point is absolutely correct, but that's what creates the fertile ground for that to happen in such a dramatic fashion like that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I do think Will Smith has been trying to do his mental health. He's trying to be focused on it. But look, this is the reality. Just because someone is a doctor doesn't mean they're good at what they do. You
Right.
have to have a good trauma specialist. You have to have a good trauma specialist. He was working with Jay Shetty.
Hmm.
That's what's real. Jay Shetty is a good podcaster.
Yeah.
He's not a trauma specialist.
Hmm.
I wish I was working with him. I do think that all of that wouldn't have happened. And being a fan, I wish it never had happened. But
Yeah.
we have to make sure we're working with people who are good and not feeling like we got to stay attached to whoever our provider is, even if they're not really helping us to get to that next level.
Yeah, that's so important. I remember when I was practicing, I had a client once say, I had been going to counselors for years, and you know, I've never gotten this far with anybody as I had with you. And that was just because I had what he needed in that moment, right? But the point is that therapists are like teachers. You're going to have a different experience with different ones. Um, there's some, for instance, like some teachers who have been teaching for 1 year, some 20 years. The disciplines are going to be different depending on who they are and what they believe personally. And so I always like to remind people that just because you try counseling or therapy with one person and it doesn't work out, don't think counseling doesn't work and therapy doesn't work or it's a waste of time. You just have to continue to seek the person who is right for you. And, be careful, because that doesn't mean find the person who agrees with you. It means find the person who is unlocking things for you, right? And until you find that person, you just haven't found the right therapist, but it doesn't mean that it's a waste of time. When you don't do that work, you see yourself doing things like this: outbursts, reactionary actions that come back on you and make you look like something that you're not, right? From, based on my background, when I saw that, I knew exactly what was happening. Of course, everyone else around the world, they had their reactions, and we can't blame them because they don't know, right? They don't know what we know. Um, but I didn't come to his defense, but I was always trying to remind people that we have to look deeper into some of the things that we see people doing, especially when it's out of character for them. Now, truth be told, we don't know any of these celebrities' character behind closed doors, but we do know patterns, right? We know certain celebrities are well known for their bad behavior, right? Will Smith is not one of those. So when we saw that, we should have given him the benefit of the doubt and said, wow, that's not like him. That's not a Will Smith I've ever seen. Something must be going on. But sometimes I believe when people have their own trauma and issues going on, that's the lens they see other people through. So they may be big feeling bullied in their lives, and they see that, and that's like, he's such a bully. I can't stand him, et cetera, et cetera. You don't care what he's going through because it's hitting too close to home. And I think we have to step back and kind of like just be more objective. But besides that, when it comes to men in this situation, what do you think is one of the first things they need to do in order to get themselves up out of a situation such as this?
That's actually so much easier said than done because they don't even realize a lot of times what's actually happening because people don't know what emotional abuse is. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're just joining us, emotional abuse, it involves a person withholding love and affection which they owe you if they're your parent while you're a minor or if they're your spouse while you're married to them. They owe you love, affection, admiration, mutual respect, and so on. So when you don't provide that for a person, it's emotional abuse. For most men, they're never educated on what emotional abuse is, if they even know what emotions really are. And to recognize that first is having education. So it's really more on us as a society to educate young men and women as to what emotional abuse is and then help them to be able to recognize the signs, both men and women, when they're in relationships where they're not being reciprocated, where their love is not reciprocated, so that they stay out of getting into a trauma bond. And that's what you see happening with these men and women who are in relationships with someone who doesn't give to their emotional needs. They don't leave. They don't think to leave. And when you tell them to leave, they won't leave because they are trauma bonded.
Mm-hmm. We have some questions coming in, and I know we were going to go to questions at the end, but because we have folks, uh, they're lost. So we're talking about Jada and Will and the recent events that occurred. Someone asked, why is Jada considered a narc? And someone also said he actually seemed more controlling. What are your thoughts on that, Roman?
So, first of all, as to why someone would be considered a narcissist, what you're looking at is there a lack of empathy? That's going to be your main indication that someone is a narcissist when there is a lack of empathy, especially for those who are close to them. So, behind closed doors, for instance, a narcissistic woman is not very nurturing to her children, usually, and is not affectionate or loving to her husband. She makes it for her husband to feel like she can never be pleased. And so that's the sensation that the husband gets in those situations. As far as Will being controlling, yeah, absolutely. He has an ego and he thought that he could save the world and make everyone happy. And that causes us to be controlling. But people pleasers are controlling, people pleasers are manipulators. And so Will Smith is a people pleaser. And the people pleaser form that he is the high achiever. And he's a drill sergeant to himself in his own mind. And so he's trying, when you put so much effort into being perfect and getting everything perfect, you bet you are controlling at times. And you think, hey, this should be this and this should be that. We're going to do this. And then that can cause you to accidentally be insensitive to the very people you are actually trying to please. So, yes, people pleasers are manipulators. And when you see this play out in a man that has power and is rich, for instance, it just looks like it's controlling behavior. We don't recognize it as weakness, as a people pleasing behavior, because we're typically thinking of people pleasers as being weaker people, or we attribute that more to women. But men can be people pleasers too. And when they're in those positions as people pleasers, the way it can look might seem like the man is just controlling, but it's actually not that. He doesn't lack empathy. He doesn't lack affection like a narcissist does. He's just trying to make everyone happy because he thinks that's his job. And that is an incorrect assumption of people pleasers. It's not your job to make everyone happy.
That's absolutely right. I think a lot of people don't understand that concept of people pleasers being being manipulative as well, because many times people pleasers feel like victims, and because of that perception, they don't see how they are trying to persuade people constantly to believe something that isn't always necessarily true. For instance, a people pleaser might say yes to doing favors that they don't want to do, but want to convince people that they do want to do them because they have some complex where they have to appear to be everyone's friend. They want to make everybody happy. Even people they don't like. And they don't even really think about not liking. Sometimes they don't even realize that they don't like the people. But they're going to do it anyway because they have an appearance to keep up. And it's a prison. It is a prison to be in. Um, Someone said
Absolutely.
people pleasers are manipulators to protect themselves. Do you agree with that, Roman?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's coming from a self-protective place. They usually fear abandonment, they fear rejection, they fear being made to feel unworthy, they fear being ostracized. But it's basically coming down to those abandonment traumas, the abandonment fears, the fear of not measuring up in Will Smith's case, probably with the harsh father figure, then feeling like you're not going to measure up, so you become identified by being the high achiever, the person who just pulls out the impossible. And this is the profile of Will Smith. That's who he was as a kid. He was like 14 or 16 or something, and he had a hit on the radio. And he never stopped performing and just working extremely hard at a high level. And a lot of this actually comes from the trauma of feeling like he has to perform at the absolute highest level, otherwise he's not even worthy of breathing, because that's the way it felt being raised by a father like that, by having a harsh father. So yeah, it's out of self-protection that people pleasers lie and they manipulate. They're trying to create a false reality for you so that you won't hurt them so
Mm-hmm.
that they'll be safe.
Mm-hmm. And one of the commenters was they mentioned no self identity, which many people pleasers have because you can't be yourself if you are trying to be everything to everyone.
Exactly. And
You
that's why when people say, well, why doesn't he just leave her?
mm-hmm,
He has a lack of self identity. He sees him as Will and Jada. So it's very difficult for him to conceptualize the idea that he would just abandon his family because for him, that wouldn't fit into the hero motif of what he's come to do. He came to be the provider and the protector. So how can he do that while simultaneously protecting himself and separating? So yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
mm. Another commenter asked, do women narcissists differ from men? I almost feel like they're even worse because they can fake empathy.
Yeah, male narcissists can fake empathy as well. Female narcissists, it's not that they can fake empathy that makes them worse. It's that society enables female narcissists. That's what makes them more deadly. So it's because we are projecting nurturing onto women. We project empathy onto women. Just think about it. You just assumed that Jada was a nurturing, empathetic mother to her children. We all do. We just assume that if a mother has children, she's going to be empathetic and nurturing to them. But then when you go back, can you remember any examples where you ever saw true empathy or nurturing ever being displayed from this
Mhm,
person? And
mhm,
not just to pick on her, but any of these narcissists that you're going back and looking at, and you realize, oh, wow, even though that person is a woman, it could be your mom, it could be your wife, your girlfriend, your aunt. Did I ever see any genuine empathy displayed from this person over a sustained period of time? Did they default to empathy? Did they lead with love for others? Are they selfless? And you realize, no. And so what's making female narcissists so deadly is that society projects empathy, love, nurturing, soft qualities on them, so they barely even have to fake it. We just assume they have it.
true indeed. Well, that same commenter said, "Well, Jada was has the Red Table Talk show. She was nurturing on that show."
Oh, no, no, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, no doubt. So
That yes, narcissists can also pick and choose who they decide to be caring with and who they don't. They can choose between children, they can choose between relatives. It just depends. So there's plenty of people in your family, for instance, that are narcissists that are kind to some people and mean to other people. And it kind of puts people in a divide because on one hand, you have people remembering them one kind of way, and on the other hand, people remember them a completely different way. And that is because they chose who they wanted to be empathetic towards. Someone else
Mhm.
said, Will and Jada is what happens when two narcs get married. She a woman, so she's a better narc.
Yeah, it's a common misconception because people think that a narcissist just means someone who's grandiose. So they look at a celebrity like Will Smith and say he must be a narcissist too. But he's not a narcissist. He achieves. He's a high achiever. He's a people pleaser. He's codependent. That's what you see in Will Smith. He is a codependent. He will never let go of these certain relationships. He doesn't. He feels like his identity is tied up in making these relationships work. And so no, I don't see narcissistic qualities and tendencies from Will Smith in terms of being a narcissist. No, of course he has narcissistic traits. We all do, but no, Will Smith is not a narcissist. He's codependent. It's a people pleaser.
Someone said, I was captivated by her ability to relate to people who were abused. And I also wanted to speak to that. I think that it is easy for narcissists to relate to people who have been abused because many narcs are born out of abuse and neglect. So they can definitely share a lot of trauma stories, a lot of tragedies with you, and they can relate to you. And it doesn't change the fact that they are who they are. we have to kind of reframe what a narcissist is. Um, they're not the devil incarnate. So they're not walking around doing evil to everyone all the time. They can be empathetic to who they choose to be. They can be intelligent. They can be well spoken. They can have many great qualities. They can even have good character traits. However, it doesn't take away the fact that they exhibit a set of traits that cause them to be a narcissist. Um,
Yeah.
some
Unfortunately, they become harmful to others, and that's typically that brand of narcissist that we're talking about is those individuals who uh, they actually end up harming people with the way that they treat others who are close to them, especially by withholding or abusing.
mhm. Someone says, nah, she was just displaying empathy. That bag was serious. They are professional liars.
They
Uh,
are professional liars. That is true because acting is lying, sure, and they're celebrities and they have been lying about their life and their marriage and keeping up appearances. That's true. But it doesn't negate the fact of the relationship dynamic. And it's not about diagnosing them as much as it is as seeing models in society to remind you of your own story and to learn from the examples that you're seeing and you go, oh, you know what? This is an example of that perhaps. And so you can apply it to your own life. And that's what I'm more concerned about is, do you see these patterns occurring in your life? Can you show empathy and understanding for what other people are going through because you realize that could happen to you too, or it is happening to you as well?
mhm. Someone asked, can you presume which of their kids is the scapegoat and which one is the golden child?
That's a great question. I won't go there. I won't presume which is the scapegoat, which is the golden child. Uh, I won't do that to them.
Hmm. Um, Someone said the only way to deal with a narcissist is not to deal with the narcissist. Um, I would say I agree and disagree with that because in this life, we're going to encounter a lot of different types of folks with issues. Most people have issues. And so you can't run away from everyone. You have to learn how to deal with people. And a lot of times we run away, truth be told, because we don't have the communication skills we think we have. We can communicate well with other good communicators, but when it comes to people who are bad at it and difficult people, unlovable people, etc., we would rather them just disappear, or we would rather just disappear. But there are going to be many situations where you're going to have to know how to deal with somebody, regardless of whether they're a narcissist or not. And it's important to invest in how to navigate those people. And it's honestly quite, I find it quite fascinating now that I've grown up a lot. Go back in time about 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have said the same thing because I would run away from every difficult person. Now I know how to navigate and social maneuver, and I learn from them, and I find it a good challenge for my mind. And so if you reframe how you look at dealing with difficult people, regardless of what their issues are, you can find that it's enriching. The experience is actually enriching because it helps you to sharpen yourself, right? So don't think that I mean, you may be able to recognize some narcissists, you won't be able to every time. Covert narcissists
Right.
are very,
But
very good
but
at
of
hiding.
course, that's right. But of course, we do. If you do recognize that someone is abusive, we do want you to remove yourself from them and get out of that relationship. But what will keep you safe from the fact that you don't know who's who when you're going out there and you're going to encounter a lot of different people is learning the relationship skills, specifically boundaries and assertiveness.
Hmm.
That will keep you safe.
Someone asks, do you feel codependent people can change, Roman?
Of course, yeah. We heal codependent people every day in my program. I have a website, healingcourse.org, And then you go there and you take the video course on there, and you do individual sessions with me, come to my free meetings, and we cure you of your codependency. Codependency is a fear of loneliness at the core. And when you can get rid of the fear of being alone, then you can develop the bravery to walk away. And when you can get to the bravery to walk away, then you have a basis on which you can rest your boundaries, because the enforcement of the boundaries is the ability to remove oneself. And so now you can set boundaries and you can enforce boundaries. And now you can start asserting yourself because you now have the ability to walk away. You're not afraid to be alone. It's not about being alone, but it's about not being afraid to be alone. And then you can actually start moving through the numbers and finding a healthy relationship.
Hmm. Someone asked, if we all have narcissistic traits, how much does a person have to be considered one?
It has to, your narcissistic traits have to be a disruption to your life and harmful to others to be a narcissist or have narcissistic personality disorder. So when it starts disrupting your life or being harmful to someone else, that's when there's a problem. So I just want to use, for example, the trait of grandiosity. Like it could sound grandiose for someone to say, I want to get 100,000 followers on Facebook or whatever, but it's not grandiose if they can do it, and if they do have 900 or what, whatever I said, 99 followers already, or whatever they're trying to get to. It's not always grandiose for every person. So grandiosity in itself isn't wrong. It just, am I going to take that to the point where I start abusing people around me and harming them, or that I disrupt my own life with my grandiosity and I'm not able to actually achieve workable goals because I'm too delusional? Then it's a disorder.
Hmm. We have some really good questions. Someone asked, how do narcs differ from borderline personality?
Borderline personality disorder individuals still have their empathy. They're still empathetic persons. They still care about how you feel, even if they might do something really mean and harsh that hurts you, even if they might act in a way that makes you think they must be a narcissist. When they're doing that, it's a temporary thing for a borderline. So they act in this really harsh or extreme manner and they hurt you, but they're not hardened into that position. When they devalue you, a borderline will then idealize you again later on in life. With a narcissist, as soon as they start the devaluation process, they never idealize you again. You start to become devalued, and then you're done. For the rest of your life with them, they are seeking to make you inferior, to prove that you are inferior on this imaginary hierarchy in their brain, and make everyone else believe that you are inferior to them. And they are more worthy than you to receive the love.
Hmm. Someone asked, how can you support a friend or sibling who is very closely tied to a narc or toxic person?
Do you want to take that?
Hmm. How can you support someone who is very closely tied to an, okay, my question back would be, is this a child or is this a full grown adult we're talking about? If we're talking about a full grown adult, which I'm assuming it is, first you have to understand that everybody has their own choices to make in life. So if you can really accept that, um, you're going to be in the right mindset to understand that you at some point you will have to walk away from that situation, knowing that it's not up to you to make the decision to untie or untangle that relationship. I think sometimes people get caught up looking at other people's toxic relationships, and they frustrate themselves and they obsess about other people's relationships and the things that they're doing and won't do. So first go into it looking at that. The second thing is, you cannot change a person's lens, but the best thing to do is to give them answers. Just telling someone you need to leave them or you need to do this or you need to do that, even if you're able to convince them that you're right, they need steps. If you give someone an order and you persuade them and they don't know how to climb down from where they are, they're going to revert back to that same behavior. This is why you see people break up and make up, break up and make up, because they've made that decision before, but they still don't know how to mentally escape from it for good because no one has outlined the steps for them. So before you go and talk to them, do a little bit of research on what it is that they're experiencing and what do the experts say about, what are the first couple of steps they need to take to get out of it. And be ready to answer objections. But you want to lead with kindness, empathy, but also neutrality, because regardless, life goes on and you have to let it go. You can't carry it, right? You can love them, and you need to, and you can speak on it and offer that advice out of that love, but it's not something you want to pound onto them, because you will have the opposite effect if you keep going back and saying, I keep telling you to leave, I keep telling you to leave. You do that and it's going to cause them usually to run into that person's arms. So you don't want to do that. Just be mindful of gentleness, kindness. Don't talk down to them. People don't want to feel like you're saying that they're stupid. Um, Eventually, hopefully, they will come around to it in good time, and hopefully, it is not too late.
I agree with that. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't save everyone,
Mm-mm.
but it's nothing wrong with pointing out to someone your concerns, but don't remove yourself from the expectation that they're going to change and do everything that you advise.
Mm-hmm. Someone says my narc won't leave, so I guess restraining order. I don't want our kids to see that. Restraining order is a good thing to have in place, but you need to have some steps to get yourself far away, and you need to think it all out and think about many angles that they can get around and try to work, because it sounds like if you're dealing with like someone who is mentally unstable, not just a narcissist but unstable, and into a point where maybe they're a danger or something like that, you need to think it through a lot, especially because you have kids. A restraining order is just a piece of paper. It does not stop anybody from doing anything. It just helps you when it comes to the legal aspect.
Mhm.
Someone says,
Do take extreme action to remove yourself from a dangerous or abusive situation, but like she said, plot it out, plan it out, talk to experts first before making a move.
mm-hmm. Someone asks, have either of you witnessed healthy relationships not built on trauma? I'll answer first. I'll say that you're asking two black folks that, so that's gonna be hard. I would say I cannot answer that completely because hmm, when you are born, you're born into a family where relationships have already existed. People have gone through many ups and downs. So I could say I saw my grandparents' relationship extremely healthy, loving relationship. I was not there the first 2 to 5 to 10 years they were married. I came way at the end part, right? So I saw the good part. So I can't say that maybe their relationship was unhealthy at first and then they worked through things and they came to a good place. I don't know. So I haven't seen anybody's whole life. But and I think that we don't really know, we can't ever know what's going on behind closed doors. Even when we think we know, just like with Jada and Will, even when we think we see a couple goals, winning, blah, 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 and come to find out, these people's relationship is not what we think. We always imagine people's relationships are better than what ours are, and they usually aren't. So I would just say no. For me personally, no. I don't know about Roman.
Yes, I've witnessed. I did have to think about it, but I have witnessed healthy relationships. Um, Everyone has trauma, but a healthy relationship is built between two individuals that understand how to treat each other in a healthy manner, how to respond to each other in a healthy manner. And so it is 100% possible to have a healthy relationship. You can do it too, but you have to first get out of toxic relationships, and so that you can start building those healthy connections. And you have to heal yourself as well.
I agree. Someone said grandiose isn't important unless you put others down.
Yeah, she's saying grandiosity
Yeah.
isn't important. It's not bad until you put others down. That's correct.
Mm. Um,
Or as long as it's not delusional beyond what's sustainable for your life as well.
mhm. Someone says how to deal with a narc serial cheating.
Well, that's the thing right there. Like you should not remain in a relationship with someone who is serial cheating because that's abuse. So if you have a boundary, which is in your relationship, you don't like your partner to sleep with other people. If the partner violates that boundary, then at that point, that is your moment to realize that this person is not respecting you. So now, since they're violating your boundary, you can restate your boundary or you can assert the boundary. What we see a lack of here is you're not asserting the boundary. So you don't deal with a serial cheating narcissist, you assert your boundary. Or I'm sorry, you reinforce your boundary. And boundary enforcement is taking your ball and going home. So you have to separate and disconnect from a person who continually serial violates your boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, Someone said would love for you guys to highlight info in the future on what to look for narcs in friendship. I guess what?
So I don't
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't, and you may say something different, but look, I don't want you looking for narcs thinking that you're going to be like this super sleuth because, like she just said earlier, covert means they hide who they are. So that's not always the key. It's great once you learn, you start seeing things, that's great, but that's not always the key because anyone can be lied to, anyone can be deceived. What you need to do is have strong boundaries and be an assertive person. Stop being nice. If you want to know how to not have narcissistic friends, stop being nice. Be assertive. You can be a kind person, generous, but nice is pleasing, appeasing. Don't try to please and appease your friends. So you get around a group, it's a new group of people, assert the self. Hey, do you like this and that? No, I'm not into that. I think that's dumb. Assert the self. And the more you assert, hey, why don't you come do this for me? That's not really a me thing to do. Hey, can you do me a favor? No, not unless you tell me what it is, then I maybe consider it. Wow, you're going to be like that? Yes, I'm going to be like that. And when you are like that, all of a sudden there's no narcissists around you. So
Yeah.
that's how you are, and that's what it means when I say be an assertive and well boundaried person. Be that person, not nice. You can be kind, but don't be a nice person. Be assertive, and then you won't have narcissists abusing you.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked, okay, so do you think two individuals can heal together after going through trauma together due to their past traumas? I would say yes, but they both have to be all in. Um, you can't do it on your own unless both of those people both align and agree, and they're both committed. It's not going to be that successful.
Absolutely correct. Two people can heal inside of a relationship, but both people have to earnestly be trying to heal. None of this, he's a narcissist, so I'm going to try to heal us. No, no, no. He's got to be trying to heal. He's got to be as gung ho, if not more gung ho than you are, pushing forward to heal.
Yep.
Both have to be 120% in. And then, yeah, you can heal together 100%. It'd be a beautiful thing.
hmm Someone asked, "Do most people consider an emotional affair as not actual cheating?" I can't. I can't answer that. I don't know. I haven't seen any research or studies on that
May,
particular.
may, may I take this one, please?
Mhm.
Don't, to whoever wrote that, stop looking for the universal rules. You're externalizing. There's universality. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether we all consider it cheating. What are your boundaries?
Right.
You decide your rules in your relationship. So you decide, I don't want someone emotionally cheating. I don't, then this is what emotionally cheating is. You can decide that. It's up to you. You can decide if they can text people, if they can have friends of the opposite sex, if they can do, you decide all of that. And then if they want to do it, then they can do that outside of the relationship with you. It's just that simple. And that's how you enforce your boundary. Like, oh, that's fine. You can be you. I don't want to stop you. But in my house, in my relationship, this is how it has to be. I don't want you doing this, this, this. And you can set the rules, no matter how ostentatious they may seem, no matter how crazy it may seem. They are your boundaries, your standards. You set them, you enforce them. And if people don't want to be a part of it, then they just exist outside of your atmosphere.
Hmm. Now, guys, we are running over time. This was a great conversation. I'm going to download this, upload it to YouTube. I'm going to provide it to Roman. And if you guys want the link to this, we can send that to you. Someone had asked, how did you both learn about Narc's personal experience? It's going to be a combination between personal experience, training, and reading.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I really appreciate all of the great compliments and questions that you guys gave, also some of the insights that you gave. Um, it's so many good things I'm still seeing in the comment section, and I'm sorry we have to cut it short, but this was great. Roman and I will be coming back, doing
We'll
more.
be back.
Yeah, you guys. I
We'll be back.
this, and I hope it's been helpful to you guys. Okay, have a good night. Thank you again. Bye, Roman.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.